Right, let me show you how I did this, my final project. We'll talk about it a little bit here. And let me see here. So it's on the screen over here. Like I was saying, it's psychedelic country song, kind of in the sort of like um, Graham Parsons, Flying Burrito Brothers, stuff like that, stuff from the late 1960s, early 1970s, and also like an eight, maybe it was a nine. I think it was a '90s band. Gosh, what I can't remember. I don't remember right now. I'll think of them in a second. But so anyway, that's the inspiration. So that's kind of what I did. So let's take a look at it right here. Right. There's my Pro Tools session. Let me go ahead and make this window as big as possible for you guys. There you go. All right. So let's see here. So I've got a bunch of tracks here, right? So there's some guitars. I started off with acoustic guitar and a click track. So here's my click track, right? And so the way you make a click track, just in case you don't know, in Pro Tools, is you go here to the track menu and you go all the way down and you say create click track, right? So then here's what that sounds like. Let me do this here and make it active. So this is what it sounds like. Oh, hold on a second. Here we go. Why are you not hearing that? Oh, here. This is why. Here we go. It's like a little metronome, right? So I follow that. So I had the click track going, and I recorded a couple of acoustic guitars, right? I ended up taking that out because I don't need it, right? So what I did was I made it inactive, right? But just so you guys can hear it here, I'm going to go ahead and solo that, and I'm going to solo the acoustic guitars, right? Oops. There we go. So I actually recorded a number of acoustic guitars, and I decided to keep two of them, right? These two here, and then there's this third one that comes in there. So actually, just so you guys you can kind of see through the session here, I'm kind of building the song. So the song starts, you'll hear it in a second. The song starts kind of quiet and with just a few instruments, and I start adding things as we go along, right? And you'll see this here. But just to kind of give you an overview, so I started out with these acoustic guitars. Then what I did is added a bass guitar, and that's it right there. And actually, well, there it is. There's the bass guitar. So I added the bass, and then I went back and added a bunch of electric guitars, and I mean a lot. So that was probably the hardest thing to do because just because of the situation I was in, and I have to play really quiet because I'm sharing the house with a bunch of other people, and they're doing their work. So, online, and so I had to kind of keep it quiet. And my neighbors typically don't mind, but so the electric guitars I had to record them kind of quiet, and I picked and I chose the ones that I liked, right? So there's electric guitar 1. There's this electric guitar high, which I ended up manipulating here in a sec. I'll show you. Electric guitar 2, which I decided to ditch. Electric guitar 3, and finally Lex. That's electric. I misspelled it. Number 4, right? And then I added reverb to a bunch of those things here. You'll see here in a second. Then when I went, then after I got all that done, I had the bass and some of the electric guitars, which is kind of weird. I actually went and added drums. Now these are MIDI drums, right? It's from an app called Easy Drummer. It's actually pretty cool. Easy Drummer. It's basically a sample library, right? They went in and they actually recorded real drums, chopped them up, turned them into one hits. The drummer says, hit your floor tom, hits the floor tom, boom, hit your floor tom a little bit softer, boom, boom, and just went down the line and did all the toms, the cymbals, the kick drum, and all that stuff, right? And it's a pretty cool app. There's a bunch of them out there. BFD is one. Easy Drummer is one. The same company makes this thing called Superior Drummer, which is superior. And then there's uh, Slate. Slate Digital makes uh, Slate drums. It's SD, the Slate drum pack, right? And it's all MIDI. And so I actually use my keyboard. Let me go grab that for you guys so you can see it here. So I use this little guy right here, right? Little M Audio Ozone thing, O2 thing, right? Pretty cool little thing here. Little short little keyboard, but good enough for most of the things I'm doing, that kind of stuff, right? Hooks in with USB, right? By the way, I'll take the opportunity to encourage you guys to take the MIDI class. MIDI is a way of, not to get too much into it, but MIDI is a way of, of controlling virtual instruments, and not just virtual instruments, but actual real synthesizers. And you can edit it and do, whatever. You can make it perfect if you want, right? And these are my MIDI drums. I actually recorded all the MIDI, right? So Easy Drummer is a plug in here, right? Because it'll, whatever. It's bypassed right now. But Easy Drummer is a plug-in, right? And it comes up and has a drum kit, a picture of a drum kit, and you can switch out the little drums and stuff, right? Frankly, the drums that they recorded with Easy Drummer, just the ones that come with it, aren't very good. And so they do make these expansion packs that other people have recorded, and you can actually use those drums in your Easy Drummer. One of our instructors, Andre Moran, actually recorded a bunch of drums for Easy Drummer and Superior Drummer, and it's a pack, and those actually sound really good. These ones that came with it didn't sound, so I had to actually fiddle with them to make them sound halfway decent. So here they are, right? So here's all my MIDI stuff. And what I ended up doing is I ended up rendering all those MIDI tracks, right? And so that I turned my MIDI into audio. All these guys right here, they turned into audio tracks, right? So there you go. Those are my drums, right? And the drums consist of, and I'll flip over here. The drums consist of a kick drum, right? I'm going to get rid of all these guys here while I'm at it, so you guys don't have to keep looking at all that stuff. So I'm going to click these guys, and I'm going to right-click them. I'm going to hide them, right? If they were, let me get rid of that one while I'm at it. I'm going to hide that guy. They would still play. If I hide them and don't make them inactive, they'll still play, right? But I made them inactive, right? So here we go. So I've got a kick. There's a stick, a side stick, right? You'll hear it in a second. And there's a snare that actually comes up on the snare track just as one, but I made 2 tracks out of it. There's a hi-hat track, a tom hit. There's only one tom hit, but I had to have it in there. And then there's the overheads, the mics that are over the drum, and then the room mics, which are mics far away from the drum kit, picking up the drums in the room, basically like a reverb, right? And what I did here is I took all the close mics, because there's a particular sound that I was looking for, again, kind of from the early 70s, that sort of really dry, no reverb kind of sound on my close mics. And so I took all of these guys here, right? And I actually submixed them. If you can see here, right? Actually, let me show you here. Here's the close mic submix is what that track is called, right? So what I'm doing with all these close mics, the kick, the side stick, the snare, the tom, I'm sending all of those to this track right here. See, the outputs of these are going to the input of that guy right there, right? So they're all showing up in there, right? And I'll just show you, right? Let me go over here and here it is. Exciting, huh? See how that kick drum doesn't sound very good. Anyway, so that's all that. So they're all showing up right here. The reason I did that is because I put a compressor on. I put a compressor. Now this is not going to come with your Pro Tools or your Cubase or anything. This is one I bought, but I bought it on sale for 29 bucks. Um, These sales periodically come up. Normally it would be like super expensive, and I wouldn't want to buy it, but it was so cheap, you know. So I wanted to compress those, and so I wanted to compress all the drums together. So I sent all of my drums to this submix track right here, this guy, right? And then threw a compressor on there. Right? Those are all my close mics, rather. And then I have my rooms, right? So here we go. I'll do this. Yeah, I'm going to go like this. So here's... See, that sounds more realistic, right? Now, the drums sound a little bit out of time. Initially, I recorded the drums, and then I went through and quantized it. And what that means is I took all my MIDI drums, and I lined them up perfectly on where it should be, right on time. But of course, drummers don't play that way, and it sounds a little unrealistic when you do that. It just it doesn't sound, especially for this kind of music, blues, jazz, all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't work, right? And so typically you record the drums and the bass. At least the drums and the bass really should be played together, right? And then you can lay, if you need to. Most of the time you play like that Nashville session guy that I sent. I showed you that video of you guys, for you guys to watch. Everybody's kind of in the same room. Maybe some of the stuff is isolated, but everybody's together and they're playing off each other. But of course, it's just me here. And so I played the guitars and the bass, and then I went back and put the drums on there. And the drums didn't match the guitar play. It just didn't work, right? So what I had to do is, one by one, I'll show you. I'll go up here to the here we go. I had to go to one by one. Where's my MIDI? Oh, my MIDI track. Here it is, MIDI drums. I had to go through here. There they are. And I had to go find all the kicks, and I had to line them up with the bass by ear. Every single one of them by ear. I didn't line every one of them. If they were just a little bit too perfect, I moved them to make it fit with the guitars and the bass. Right? Once you hear it all, you'll go, oh, that sounds like it's in time. But so it was a little tedious, but that's okay. Right? So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hide that guy. What else can I hide? Go back to here. I'll hide that, and I'll hide that. There we go. All right, real good. So then I added some EQs. So check this out. So this is the guitars. Here's the guitars by themselves, right? So I used my baby bottle, the one that I won in the raffle. And that actually sounds pretty good. It was a decent recording. Now, it's really hard to actually record an acoustic guitar by yourself, because you have to actually record it, listen to it, and go, oh, that doesn't work, and keep moving it around until you get So this wasn't actually too bad. And it sounded pretty good. But the problem was, the problem is I wanted those two acoustic guitars, the ones that are panned hard left and right. I wanted those. I recorded the green one, and then I went back into the purple one, right? Listening to the green one and the click track, I recorded the purple. I wanted two things. I wanted it to sound more old-timey, more like from the 70s, right? And so this is a little bit too clear. So I added this EQ in there. You'll see it. It actually rolls off. It doesn't take away. It just turns down some of those high frequencies to give it kind of an old guitar kind of sound, right? And so here it is with the EQ on it. little old school, right? Then I put a now that sound actually sounded really good, but when I bring in all the instruments, the drums and the bass and the electric guitars and all that kind of stuff, these guitars are a little bit too forward. They're kind of dominating stuff, and I kind of want them. It's not that I wanted them to be in the background, but I wanted them to not keep poking up, you know, commanding too much attention. So um, uh, what I did was I compressed them a little bit, right? So here it is with the compressor. Turn that on there. If you now watch the meter, right? So you'll see the meter, and really the only time that compressor's working when I hit a little bit too hard, right? So when I hit a little bit too hard, and it's not inappropriate, there's nothing wrong with the way I played, but what happens in those loud notes kind of brings up the guitars, jump up, you know, a little bit too much when everything's in there, right? So you'll notice the compressor isn't always compressing. The compressor only knocks down some of those louder notes, right? Like those. See, right? So that's kind of what we're doing. We're just kind of, you know, pushing it down a little bit, right? So those are the guitars. So this acoustic guitar down here, right, this third one here, what I did is I didn't bring it into, actually I recorded that one along with, just like the purple and the green. But I was thinking, you know what, that one, I left it panned into the middle for one. See, it says pan right there. I left it in the middle. And I didn't bring it in till then. And this is later on in the song. Check it out. It's kind of like towards, you know, almost halfway, right? Again, I'm building the song. The song starts, you'll hear it in a second, with just the acoustic guitars. Then it adds the drums and the bass come in, and the electric guitars start filtering in, and finally this guy here, right? So check this out. I'm going to do this, and this, and this, and I'll run it for a little bit. Oh, so I didn't, on this guy here, I just dipped out a little mid-range, because now too many of those same frequencies, the green, the purple, and then now the rust-colored one, too many of those frequencies, it'll start getting bunched up in there. And what I wanted to do is have that kind of cleared out. I couldn't get my friend to come and sing, so maybe at some point she can come in. But, and again, we need to leave room for the vocals, right? And so I dug out a little bit of this sort of mid-rangey, what frequencies? Yeah, 475, right? And so I dug out a little bit of that just to kind of keep it clear. And I didn't want this guitar to sound old-timey. I wanted it to have a brightness to it. And so when it pops in, you'll kind of hear it pop in, and it's very different from the other two. The band is Mazzy Star. That's the one I was remembering. Just remembering Mazzy Star, the California band. All right. It fades up. Yeah. It fills it out, you know. Now, when she comes in to sing, maybe that I wouldn't be able to have that in there. I have to take that out, all right? Because the vocal needs to be up front. Anyway, so that's the acoustic guitars. So I got these sort of psychedelic electric guitars here. Oh, let me. Yeah. So there's a tremolo effect that's on from the amp, right? So my amp has got that tremolo, which is like it gets louder, softer, louder, softer, louder, softer. Wow, 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 like that, right? You could hear the amp going, the hiss of the amp is going. It's funny, right? So this guy right here, oh, actually go to this other electric guitar. Here's electric guitar number 3. Oh, let me get all the, you know what, let's turn on all these effects. So there's a shortcut for all this stuff here. There you go. I think they're all on. All right, here we go. Dun, dun, dun. So this electric guitar was done with an amp, right? I actually recorded it with an amp. And I put a gate on it. This is kind of cool. So this is a trick to make it sound more steel guitar-like, right? If you listen to this guy, so it goes wah, instead of going da, da, it goes wah, da, da, right? In fact, let me make the, here we go. Right, so you guys know about gates, right? So it's just a gate with the attack really slow. So the gate opens for the guitar, but it opens really slow. Right? And I put an EQ on there to take some of the highs out, which it didn't sound bad, but again, I don't want that guitar sticking out. I want that guitar, these electric guitars are background instruments, right? They're kind of like adding like a pad, right? Here's the two guitars together. This one here, Elex Guitar 4, I recorded that direct. I went straight into my Scarlett with the guitar, right? And flipped it to the Scarlett has a built-in direct box, right? Which takes the signal from instrument level up to mic level. Then the mic amp brings it up to line level. And so I put a guitar amp simulator on there, right? Virtual amp kind of thing, right? Then I have a plug-in called Tube Delay, which is just like an echo, right? It's a emulation of a tube delay unit, right? A pretty darn good one, by the way. Then again, the same kind of EQ, I kind of taken the highs out to keep it from sticking out too much. Then I sent both of those guitars to reverb, right? So that's an aux send. An aux send, remember, duplicates the signal, sends the duplicate, the original one stays in the track, the duplicate goes somewhere else. In this case, the duplicate comes to this track here, guitar verb, right? That's where it ends up. And I have this plugin called Black Hole, which is a cool plugin, a really cool plugin. Eventide, like one of the granddaddies. Again, I got this on sale. Pretty cool. And then the bass, just the bass, right? There was too much low end in it, so I actually, listen to this. Again, the amp was turned way down, or the guitar was turned way down, and so there's hiss, and I had to get rid of that hiss. Fortunately, bass doesn't have a whole lot of high end in this particular case. And I had to pull some of the lows in there. It was just way too much. Then I compressed it with my LA2A emulation from Waves. All right. There we go. Well, then there's my drums. Right. This guy here, check this guy out. Again, I'm trying to build up. It needed something. It needed something else, and I didn't want to record something else. So what I did was I actually, believe it or not, this is a guitar track. Excuse me. And this guitar track had some guitar, and what I did was I cut out just a chord of a guitar, and then I applied some crazy stuff to it, basically some synthesis kind of stuff. I time stretched it, made it really, really super long, and then I time stretched it again, and time stretched it again, time stretched it again. So it got really bizarre sounding. And then once it was really bizarre sounding, I pitch shifted it up 2 octaves and then pitch shifted it up another 2 octaves, right? And then pitched it back down, right? So this is the result. And I bring it in with a fade. Crazy. And I got that same black hole reverb on there, just with just different settings. Believe it or not, that's a guitar playing a chord, right? Again, once I got done manipulating it, it sounds like that. Well, let's hear it, shall we? I'll send you guys the mix. I'll email you guys the mix, so you guys can hear it, but without having to listen to it on this YouTube audio. But here it is, right? All right, so uh, so there it is, right? So notice the drums actually sound in time now, right? Because they're matching the guitar playing and the bass playing. Uh, so there you go, right? And so if a bunch of musicians were in the same room, they would actually be naturally doing that anyway, right? They'd be listening to each other and playing off each other. Something I wanted you guys to notice here towards the end. Maybe I can turn this up really loud for you guys. Listen really hard. Do it right at the end here. So you could hear click track, right? So this is like a big problem in the studio. You can hear click track in the headphones. Listen again. And then me moving around in the chair. Uh, Bad Dan, right? So the click track was, again, the click track was loud enough uh, to leak into the microphone, right? Which happens, right? So I couldn't get rid of it because the guitar is sustaining out, right? The other thing is you have to tell your musicians a couple of things. At the end of the song, the musicians need to be very, very quiet. They can't move. They need to hit that last chord or whatever they're doing and not make any sound. And they have to allow the instruments to decay completely on their own, right? The other thing is you got to make sure you don't stop recording. You don't stop the computer. You don't stop Pro Tools or whatever you're using. Don't stop it until everything is completely run out. Until everything is completely quiet, right? That happens. All people cut off stuff all the time, and you don't want to do that, right? And so, let me think here. So they have to be really quiet. Ideally, the click track wouldn't be leaking into the microphones. Here's another thing you got to remember. People have to tune, right? They have to tune, and you can't have them tune to each other. That doesn't work. They have to tune to some sort of reference, which means like a tuner, like some kind of. There's a tuner built into Pro Tools. I'm sure all the other DAWs have a tuner built into them. My phone's got a tuner in there. Let me show you. I've got a couple of tuners. Here's a tuner. Pro Tools. My phone's got a tuner in there. I also have a strobe tuner. Peterson Strobo tuners are like the best tuners in the world. And I've got one on my phone, right? You can have, like, if there's a tuner pedals. I've got a metronome over there that when I practice guitar, it's got a tuner in there. They have to tune to some reference, right? And here's why. If they just tune to themselves, that works great when they're recording. But what happens 2 weeks later when the fiddle player or the guitar player, another guitar player, or somebody comes in with another instrument, trumpet, I don't know, whatever, and what if the musicians had tuned to themselves, not tuned to a reference, right? And it's slightly sharp or slightly flat. Then that person's got to, they got to get their trumpet and they got to figure out how to tune to whatever they're recording, which is a lot harder to do. It kind of sucks. Now check this out. What if you record a band that has guitar and bass and drums and whatever on it, fiddle, I don't know, whatever, and they're like, wait, we're not in tune. Let's tune, and everybody tunes to each other, right? And let's say they tune to the bass player. All right, everybody tunes to the bass player, and the bass player is slightly sharp, right? 2 weeks later, the producer goes, you know what we need? We need some piano. Let's put some piano on that thing. Well, you can't tune the piano's not going to tune. You're not going to make it slightly sharp to match the recording. Forget that, right? You need a reference. You got to tune to a reference just in case you decide to put piano on something, right? Or tune the piano, right? So there you go, some hints. If you'll notice through here, I did some overdubbing, and it's obviously I did some punching in, like the requirements had me. So that's a punch in. I've got some punch ins there. I punched in those 3 notes. I punched in that note there. What else? There's some other punch ins. I don't know, somewhere. Oh, right back here. I punched in those last chords. Because I kind of screwed that up. Yeah, I kind of screwed up that last. There's that last bit on both of those guitars. On the rust-colored one, I got it right. So punch-ins, got my overdubs, all my requirements I met. There you go. So there you go. There's my thing. You guys can take a look at the YouTube video and listen to it and see what you think. Again, I'm going to email you guys the final mix, an MP3 of the final mix. You can listen to it like on a phone or something like that, right? I can take questions, whatever. When you guys, once you go. Oh, one last thing here. I actually did this. I put a compressor. Watch this here. Let me do this new track. I'm going to go to new track, right? And on Pro Tools, you make a new track. I can actually pick a stereo master fader. There it is, right? And that's what I did down here. There's a master fader. Right? Here's what it looks like in the mixer window. There you go. Right? It's a master fader. Now, on all mixers, right, you'll have all these channel faders, all the instruments or whatever is on there. What ends up happening is they all end up on, guess what? The master fader. Or sometimes they call it the stereo fader, the main mix fader, or the two-bus fader. There's a bunch of different names for it, right? In Pro Tools, this always happens. This fader is always there, right? That fader is always there. It's just that when you create the master fader, you actually, really, you're just choosing to see it, right? But that fader is always there. It has to be, right? And that's where everything goes. All this stuff is going here to this fader down here, right? And on the master fader, on the entire mix, right? On the entire mix, I put a compressor, right? And this is again a virtual copy of emulation of a real one, which is basically it's a compressor that was at Abbey Road, which you hear that compressor on like Pink Floyd stuff, on the Beatles stuff, on Badfinger, all that stuff from the 60s and 70s, that you hear this compressor on that. And again, I wanted that kind of older sound, so I threw that on there, right? So there it is. Ask questions in class after you take a look at this thing and listen to it, right? So there it is. There's my final project. And I bounced it down. Again, I chose how long my mix was going to be. I went File, Bounce to Disk. Again, there's a YouTube video of this, but right, just in case. I picked a WAV file. I added an MP3. It's an interleaved file. Again, the interleaved file takes the left channel and the right channel and zips them together into one monolithic file. Right? And bit depth 44.1. It should have been 96, right? But I'm not releasing this. This is like a thing, just for us. So I didn't want to take a bunch of hard drive space. So it was at 44.1. But really, it should be. If this is going to be a real project, it would be 96.24, right? And then there you go. I hit bounce, and it made my mix. All right. See you guys in class. Thanks for listening.